Hello there, kia ora. This week we saw the first and hopefully final reading of David Seymour's Treaty Principles Bill in an impassioned, tense, and occasionally downright willfully blind process in Parliament. The Prime Minister has said it stops the coalition, a coalition that's actively gone out of its way to undo steps that would help create equitable outcomes and ensure input from tangata whenua, from being able to do their job. Tens of thousands of tangata whenua, tangata tiriti, and tau iwi have been on a hikoi this week to protest it. Politicians from within the coalition and across opposition have called it out, as have a massive range of groups and organisations, including King's Council lawyers, over 100 different community groups, former prime ministers, church leaders, iwi groups, Amnesty International, Maori translators, education organisations, and of course the Waitangi Tribunal. The Tribunal described in their first report on the initial draft of the bill that it was trying to fix a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. The final draft report called it a deliberate attempt to destroy the fabric of social cohesion that the country is built on. And David Seymour maintains that the bill isn't divisive. But that line is part of a multi-pronged communication strategy. It includes the style of language that's used, simplistic messaging designed to be hard to argue with, and tricks to block commentary from specific organisations with a vested interest in the process and let him play victim at the same time. So let's start with that last one. Seymour has long complained about the Waitangi Tribunal, claiming that they've got the power to define the principles of the treaty, and that's just not fair on ordinary New Zealanders. And over the years, it's morphed from being about settlement claims to dictating the law. The Waitangi Tribunal was actually set up in 1975 in the Treaty of Waitangi Act, with a stated aim of setting up a tribunal to make recommendations relating to the practical application of the principles of the treaty, and whether matters it faces are inconsistent with those principles. And its legally defined jurisdiction includes identifying if Maori will be prejudicially affected by regulations, orders, proclamations, notices, or acts after February 6, 1840. That law also forbids the tribunal from commenting on any act currently before the House of Parliament and states that they should be kept informed of all dates for upcoming bills that are going to be introduced to Parliament. So David's claims that the tribunal are obsessed about dates is actually them doing their legal due diligence, and his changing of the dates of introduction to the House changes their ability to be able to do their job and make an assessment on the proposed bill. But apparently David's the victim here. And now, when it comes to messaging, Seymour has a really simple line he uses. Who could be against equal rights? This is a bad faith argument. It's designed to manipulate opinions and sow seeds of doubt. The same way a number of MPs from the coalition, as well as candidates who ran for Parliament, used the line, I believe in one person, one vote, without further detail when asked about co-governance during the election. But when it came to actually looking at the laws that do allow multiple votes, on people who own property in a district that they don't live in because co-governance has never afforded anybody more votes than anyone else, well, they had nothing to say and didn't change the laws. It creates an assumption, though, in some people that there's more being offered to one group over another. What it doesn't do, though, is actually tell you what rights Māori are supposed to have that non-Māori don't. And that's because experts in te tiriti and constitutional law define those rights as the guiding principles currently used to work through issues that the tribunal deals with. Ensuring the rights of partnership between Māori and the Crown be taken under good faith, participation in all levels of the process of decision-making, and protection of Māori interests, rights, taonga, and rangatiratanga. They also include principles of kawanatanga, redress, cooperation, equality, consultation, development, and informed decision-making. Now, these might not be explicitly named within te tiriti, but have been developed by academics, historians, lawyers, judges, experts employed by courts, constitutional experts, politicians, and government officials on a case-by-case basis as the tribunal works through cases in front of it. And that's because the tribunal is, under law, designed to deal with each case one by one and to take on individual cases and circumstances in their process. So, guiding principles give them a framework to work within without boxing in their ability or limiting their approach, which Seymour's bill would do. So the special rights that are claimed to be there are actually protections to ensure Māori have the same rights that Seymour's fans take for granted. But because they look at the world through a Pākehā-centric lens, they clash over concepts a lot of the time, like ownership or well-being or working together. Or, kaitiakitanga, hauora, or kotahitanga, sometimes on purpose and sometimes because they're indoctrinated that way. Now, it's one of the reasons he claimed in the House during the reading that giving Maori seats in decision-making processes was giving them special rights, when it's actually protecting the rights already expected of non-Maori that haven't always been afforded to Maori. A number of Seymour's arguments are also designed to be so ridiculously simplistic. After all, ACT voters don't like complicated approaches, and it's far easier to sell them an idea if the concept is simple to understand. Like the idea that Parliament is the only place that makes laws. There's actually two ways laws are made. One is through Parliament, and the other through something called the law of precedent, which is rules and laws that are set in legal cases that become authoritative in decision making, which is what's been happening with the treaty so far through the Tribunal. There's his argument that it's all about equality, which sounds good on paper, but assumes that everyone's at the same starting point and get the same opportunities, but that's not the case. We know Maori are overrepresented in a number of statistics, and there's a million feeders that have led to that, from ingrained institutional racism, ongoing media bias, past racist laws, inequitable access to health and education resources, and ingrained attitudes of discrimination. And to assume that it will all just vanish if this was to go ahead is not just naive, it's actively misleading, which will lead to further inequitable outcomes down the line. The reality is that as just one of 5 countries without a definitive constitutional founding document, we have a complicated system in place for our constitutional setup. A simple approach to draw a line and create a simplistic definition for such a complex element of a complex system is a disservice to everyone who calls Aotearoa New Zealand home. It appeals to some people who mistake equal treatment as privilege because they come from a privileged background and can't tell the difference, or to some people who think that their reckons are more important than the opinions and expertise of people who have been studying and working in this field for generations. But it's a blunt instrument designed to erase 50 years of progress towards equitable outcomes and restitution for historic and, let's face it, potential future transgressions between the two parties which are signatories to the founding document. It's being sold with a simplistic, misleading messaging that appeals to some people with more dollars than sense and who believe for one group of people to succeed, another has to fail. When really, a rising tide lifts all boats. And te tiriti, that should be our mooring. Wait, you're still here? It's over. Go find another video.